traders, what up investors? Ken here from Dyslexic Investor, and yes, put on your hats, put on your seatbelts, and let's get cruising here because just sit back and we're going to be talking about Quantumscape. Again, ticker symbol QS. This is going to be an interesting play, probably one of the most pure plays in the EV space on the battery technology. A couple disclosures out of the way. If you're not interested in this video, this is a company that is basically still very much into the evaluation and just really kind of building their OEM kind of product to be tested. They're looking to potentially have that product be tested in the market not until 2022. And they're saying, the experts from the company and the board are saying that this company most likely will not see their battery technology inside of cars until 2024 or 2025. So this is very early stage. Again, this company did come public via a SPAC. So if you have a little bit of hindrance on that as well, you're more than welcome to leave and watch something else. But I just really wanted to highlight this on not just being the quintessential trying to bring the EV market into a full spectrum of the world, and really just seeing the enormous amount of movement and just how many people are really getting into the space here. I'm just kind of really looking at the outliers and the people who actually have a really solid product behind them. And I think Quantumscape has the capability of doing so. So full disclosure, as of right now, recording on April 3rd of 2021, I currently do not have any positions in Quantumscape, but I am looking forward to investing in this, most likely via longer dated call options, but we'll talk about that as well once we kind of go into the premiums that they're currently looking at, and as well most likely stock, due to the fact of longevity on the potential 10 banger, as a good friend used to call it, aka, of course, you know who we're talking about. We're talking about Peter Lynch, the person that I really relate to on trading philosophy and just really portfolio management. So yeah, let's kind of just go again and get into this again. We're really going to try to break it down in different various segments. We're going to be talking about the technology, looking at, again, really, I want to emphasize, people are going to probably speculate like, oh, it's a dumb investment right now. Sure, right ahead. That's I'm kind of there with you. It's a little bit overvalued, but I found an interesting article that was written by the Investor Place here. The Quantumscape looks, despite a rocky 2021 start. Of course, once we get to the chart, you can kind of see on how insane some of the moves we've seen within the stock in just recent months of its becoming public. Of course, via SPAC, again, with the certain caveat of the SPAC behind it. So this whole year has been pretty tremendous, a downward tick for a lot of SPACs. Of course, we saw a crazy amount of growth coming into last year, and then really towards the beginning of this year, things kind of really melted down on people just taking profits and just really hurting their hands and having paper hands. I like how this article kind of highlights that everyone's looking towards the future of Tesla and racing towards a $1 trillion market cap. Of course, Elon Musk is, I think, whatever, depending on what the stock is, I don't think he's the richest man in the world right now. But the fundamental story on QS is that it doesn't deserve the sell-off that it had. Because again, once we jump into the stock went up to like $130, $140. But considering that we're still in this EV bubble, which I kind of tend to agree with, but I think it's also an EV movement. They said that I suspect that QS stock will go much higher. I also believe that quantum glass battery technology at heart of its business model is innovative enough for QS stock to be classified as a potential multi-banger, aka 10 banger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, it's really early here. It's only 5 o'clock here in the morning. By this time, of course, you've seen the volatility in the market. We saw, of course, your friend Nicola pushing trucks down the thing. Meanwhile, NIO, which actually, they kind of make this an interesting point. I think we all know that they did receive a bailout from the government, which is totally understandable. I understand that. But most people are a little bit scared, and a sign of several investors who do not invest in Chinese companies, and then that's all their forte as well. Of course, who is behind Volkswagen? I mean, behind QS, we have a large investment from Volkswagen, and of course, Mr. Bill Gates is also behind it as well. So that kind of gives a little caveat there as well. Not saying it's completely approved and it's not going to be like a pushing a truck down the hill kind of situation, but this is really, I like how this highlight this is. They refer it as the Holy Grail. Glass battery technology will solve two of the most progressive problems keeping electric vehicles from wider adoption. We've talked about this quite a few times. We talked about Ford, their new SUV Mustang coming out. We talked about, of course, Volkswagen. We talked about GM. Of course, we talked extensively about Tesla on like, hey, most of these cars are like $10,000 to $15,000 more than an average car in its same kind of range, in the sense of like a midsize SUV, a smaller sedan, a larger SUV kind of scenario, and considered still on the more on the luxury side. I know we've seen Elon speak and talk about it last September extensively on really creating the lower cost Tesla, on looking for that magical holy grail 25K, really kind of building a mass produced vehicle like that. Again, so we'll see on how this continues to go ahead. It says Quantumscape is ahead of the curve in terms of research and focusing on this vendor. Volkswagen invested $300 million in Quantumscape and hopes to deploy its cells in 2025. Of course, this again, it's only 2021. Like we just started 2021, just closed Q1 of 2021, and we're still looking for well over 4 years in the futures where this is even going to be looking at. Of course, we've seen wonderful Volkswagen do the April Fool's joke of changing their name to Voltwagen, and that was funny as well. The article also highlights that it's risky, right? Risky, blah, blah, blah. It's only trading at 204x forward price and earnings, because it really doesn't have much earnings, right? Because it's very much an extreme price target. So that's why a lot of people are like, hey, this is overpriced for what they do. You're really just kind of investing in the case of the technology. Like you have to really do your due diligence. And if it's I'm not saying let's put in the chips here and let's invest your whole account. I'm like, this is something that you slowly scale into. From this is what I want to be looking at, and looking at slowly adding it every quarter, every month or so, depending on how price dictates. But really just being risky, and we'll just see on how this one overall plays out. Again, going into the overall technology thing, there's some great little presentations here. They have a great little panel on their website on the technology behind things. It's almost like an FAQ, and it really breaks down. So they have basically four major pillars on, basically they want to significantly increase the volume or density of the battery, so that makes it last longer. The faster charging, so again, you're not sitting around waiting 25, 35, whatever minutes, eating a hamburger or drinking a milkshake, waiting for that EV to charge. And of course, life, which kind of falls into the energy part of it, on where they're just kind of just making it a larger life cycles. You have more charges year over year, so the life of the battery just extends out, so forth. And then of course, safety. We want things to be super safe here. We don't want to be blowing up or things like that. And at the same time, being safe, we want it super low cost, and that just takes time. So we'll see on how this continues to grow here. We can see here the different varied battery technologies from the 70s, 80s, today's, and then Quantumscapes. So the solid state is what you hear quite a bit about, the different various technologies. We saw that at the NIO conference day as well, or their battery day. We saw that on Tesla battery day as well. The solid state is really looking for this holy grail of really allowing the battery technology to exceed dramatically. And you can see the leap from today into the future, where it's really looking to continuously create this mass amount of gapping up. So it makes it almost not even a question, comparing it to a combustional engine. So again, full disclosure, this is still years away. Again, this is not going to be seeing any kind of production for some time. So be very mindful about that. This is something you really have to understand, that this is pretty cutting edge technology and they're working on it very aggressively. From the interviews and other various showcases that you can kind of pop into, the battery showcase stuff here and all the other things that you can kind of see, and just kind of give yourself a little bit of a grounding version of what is Quantumscape. Looking at the chart here, so yes, this is where a lot of people are looking at. As you can see here, last year in December, a couple days before Christmas, we hit a all-time high at $132. Okay, that's insane. Okay, and this was a SPAC. It went from $10 to $132 in basically 3.5 months. So that's a very nice. And we did trade this. We got into it basically, I believe, around 20-ish, 25, 28. We saw it run up here, and it just gapped up, and we actually sold majority of it at the 75, and I think I put one order at around like 100 or something like that. So I kind of missed this last leg up, which is totally fine. I made more than enough that I should have on the smaller position that I had, but that was a fantastic run. But you can see that staircase up and then that elevator down, just to come crashing down here, and that was definitely a no kind of moment. Like, that was insane, and I was kind of waiting down there with my little basket to kind of catch it, but that was too much of a drop down due to too many factors, and really wanted to see this kind of trade sideways for a little bit, and that's really what we're seeing here now. So we're coming into this chart here. We've been bouncing around basically between that 65 and coming down to 40, so bouncing around with that $25 range, just for some time, depending on how the market's doing, how things are going. Of course, the company, they're not pre-revenue, because they do have revenue, but they're very still much early stage. So the reason why they went SPAC, they need capital. Of course, Volkswagen, Bill Gates, and other large funds have invested in this fairly heavily, and really looking for this to really potentially break into the market. Of course, being, like we said at the beginning of the video, a key market player, that we could really see this one potentially drive the market higher, and really just specializing in their battery technology. It's not like they do other things. They're not trying to get a United States postal deal. They're not making drones. They're just focusing on solid state batteries, batteries, EV batteries as a whole, in cars. And they're not trying to build boats and RVs and four-wheelers and ATVs and push trucks down hills, and they're not doing solar. They have some really interesting people on their board as well. So I like this play. So going into the stock here, it has been like meandering a little bit. We did have a lot of volume coming in on this week on the close here. It was up nearly 10% on that large gap up. I think it was due to the CEO being on, I believe it was on CNBC or Jim Cramer Mad Money show, that got a little boost higher, talking about the EV tax credit, and then really the large initiative of President Biden pushing out a lot of rhetoric, incentives, potentially pushing the government to push on EV. And the interview was quite interesting, because the CEO of QS, or Quantumscape, made a very interesting point of saying, like, hey, the government can't dictate, in the sense of what technologies should be choosing. It's really going to be coming down to market and the capitalist market. So if QS and the company, or the solid state, doesn't really work out, and actually doesn't take 3 or 4 years, it takes actually 10 years to figure out. That's really just what's going to have to take. You can't force something to happen, which I think some people kind of do. It's kind of like putting a square brick into a circle hole. It's just not going to fit. You can't force it in there. So being really understanding of the pure play of this stock. So as we speak here, we're seeing some support coming in around $42 to $40 on the lower end side. That's going to be coming in right at that 144 EMA on the daily chart. If we scope over to like the weekly side, again, the stock's only been out for not even almost a half a year at this point, and it's a SPAC, so It got hit quite a bit here. We'll see on how this continues. On the weekly chart, again, that $41 to $42 range has been some initial support here. Really seeing if this can carry us forth, depending on how the next quarter comes out. Again, pre-revenue or not make a profit quite yet. We are seeing it kind of trade here around that $50 as of the close of this week. At the same note, what we talked about on the options. So if we go into the options chain, look at how much the premiums are on the stock. Again, we have very high implied volatility of 100 on most months. Again, this is most likely when earnings are coming out, but a lot of implied volatility. So what does that implied volatility really mean in the market? What that does, it just makes the premiums, mostly on the out of the money calls, very expensive. So we're seeing here, look on how much. Again, we did have a 10% update on the close on Thursday, but like, look at these. This is only 76 days out. It's a $50 stock, and these are trading at $7, $8, $6, and these are out of the money by $10 or $15. So that's a lot of premium in these calls. So if you're wanting to buy leaps on this company, especially for 2022 and even 2023, look at these very aggressive calls, prices here. Again, we're talking about relative implied volatility around 88 and 74%. So that's, again, a fairly high premium on the stock because it's due to the previous volatility. So what I'm looking for, while I will not be going into options immediately on this one, is to kind of see it trade sideways for some time. So that implied volatility could come down and maybe kind of calm the market and potentially bring these prices down by half and even more, potentially. If it's still trading around that $60 to $45, 40-ish range, in the next couple months or so. Because again, this play is not going to happen. This is going to be a little bit more longer winded and something you have to kind of watch at afar. Again, you're not going to be able to continuously look at this one on a daily basis because, again, it's more of a research play. Like, they're really just trying to break into the mold and bringing this solid state technology that they offer to the EV market. So we've talked about this numerous times that it's like, hey, 2024 to 2025 is what we're looking at. That's the estimates. Okay, we all know about estimates. We know how Elon Musk does his estimates of like in 2 years, and it's like 5 years, and then finally it comes out. Because again, things happen. It's life. S hits the F at times, and sometimes you're able to get the deadline, sometimes you're not. And I totally understand this with new technology and a lot of proving you have to do to really get the ball rolling. So going back to the options here, a little bit highly priced for where I would like to see them, but at the same time, the chart looks fairly interesting. We'll see how the next quarter comes out. Potentially, I would like to start nibbling at this, maybe around the 40 to 42 range. But again, I'm being very careful and cognizant about where I'm buying into this. So I'm not going to be putting in 10% of my portfolio like I have in Tesla or Disney or my larger high conviction trades. This is very much on the lower end speculative side. So be mindful of that and really do your own risk assessment about this. Again, I'm not a financial advisor or planner, so please do your own due diligence. And this is more just for educational, bringing some interesting research to your attention. And hopefully that this was somewhat enjoyable and you learned something and potentially could see on how this company could potentially change the EV market and have a very large market share, hopefully in the near future. Again, near future being in 2024-ish out. All right, guys and ladies, thank you so very much for stopping by, and I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe. Check out the affiliate links down below. We have the Amazon link for Audible. Fantastic. I love Audible. I actually am going to be listening to some Trading in the Zone again. That's a fantastic book if you're on the psychology of trading and the mindset that you should have on trading and investing. And as well, if we have a link down there for Tastyworks. So Tastyworks is a options trading and stock and crypto now platform that I use for trading. If you're interested in opening an account of $2,000 or more, you have a chance, or not a chance, you have a selection of 100 stock holdings or 10 call options of your choice between those options. All right, guys, thank you so very much, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.